All right, welcome to the VP Internal debates. So we'll begin by an introduction from each of you, and just for 30 seconds, and you can talk about your platforms as well, starting with Sean.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean Gallagher, and I'm a third-year psychology student, and I'm running to be the next AUS VP Internal. I'm currently an AMS rep on the AUS, and I want to get involved with the AUS again for two main reasons. I want to work closely with departmental clubs to ensure their success in the coming year, and I want to increase student involvement in the AUS by promoting events like elections and internal hiring positions. You can check out my website at votesean for vpinternal.wordpress.com for more info. Thanks.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Ahmed Berry. I'm an international student from Oslo, Norway. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Sean for being here today, and I'd like to thank the election administrator for hosting this debate. So to get into it, what I'd like to do as an AUS VP Internal is basically summarized into 3 points. I want to, 1, build friendship, 2, communicate opportunities, and 3, facilitate maximum productivity. I think I'll be able to do so due to my experience with the AUS as an AMS representative. Thank you.
Okay. So for the first question, Sean, how can you see clubs contributing to the growth of the AUS? How will you help the clubs stay integrated within the AUS?
I think that clubs are a great asset for the AUS to have because they're sort of the middle point between a lot of the AUS executive and the students. So if the students in clubs need something, they can communicate that to their club reps or the club execs, and then they sort of communicate to us, kind of like what the AMS reps do between the AMS and the AUS. And I want to work closely with the clubs to be sort of the middle person between them and the rest of exec. So to work with student life and building a club event calendar, work with the VP academic to sort of provide them with opportunities for research, events like the conference, and as well as with external to get sponsorship and just sort of stuff like that. So I think the clubs are a great asset, and we should really be keen on keeping them close to us.
Okay.
In order for the Arts Undergraduate Society to operate to the best of its abilities, it's important to stay very connected with the clubs around campus, especially the clubs within arts. As a VP Internal, you're supposed to act as the liaison between the clubs and council. And therefore, it's important when you want to organize events as the AUS, or you want to promote awareness, whether that is philanthropy, FROSH, or the AUS parties, you stay connected with the clubs and you let them know what is happening at all times. In addition, I would like to what I'm trying to say is that another thing that I would like to implement within council meetings is a calendar at the beginning of each month that has every single club event, because currently a lot of clubs are having events and not many people know about it. Our students aren't aware, and it's important for it to be organized and for it to be on the net so everyone knows. Apologies.
Okay, so we'll have a 30-second rebuttal period. So are there any rebuttals? Okay. Next question, for beginning with Ahmed. Which part of the internal portfolio especially interests you? And under that aspect, what would you like to see accomplished?
I think the part of the internal portfolio that really interests me is the annual council retreats as well as the AUS retreats. It's important that we have these retreats in order to create AUS unity, and if there is AUS unity, you're able to work as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Therefore, I suggest that we have more AUS council related events, especially as most counselors are very excited during their first term because they've just been elected. However, it kind of dies off in the second term. Something that I discussed with Mateus, the current VP of Finance. And I think it would be interesting in order for counselors to continue to create that bond in order for the AUS to work as efficiently as possible.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Which part of the internal portfolio especially interests you? And under that aspect, what would you like to see accomplished?
I think, as Ahmed was saying, it's really important to create like a family-like atmosphere. I remember as soon as after I got involved in the AUS, this became like a second home for me. So I think it's really important to sort of create that bonding. And another important thing is the organization of elections. Like, I think that's a great way to reach out to students and get them to be a part of this family, because we are the ones that are sort of making decisions on their behalf. So I think the more outreach we do to students, the more they can get involved and the more we can reach like the general student population. So something that I had in mind was reaching out to the VP Student Life to organize sort of an event, not really event, but part of Frosh, to go out and reach out to first year students, because I know a lot of them, it might be hard for them to get involved. And this sort of creates like a community for them, and it's great like because they can get involved for the rest of their time at UBC.
Okay. Are they in your buckets?
How's the Frosh, how do you plan on having a Frosh related events for all first year students?
Well, it's not really a Frosh related event, but putting it more as part of Frosh. Like if I were to get up there and make a speech and say, hey look, our elections are coming up at this time and this time, like if we can get a couple of people to talk about their experiences, it might sort of get kids more likely to join, because like we do have 2 first year representatives, and I feel like maybe there is room for more considering how big first year committee is this year and the great events that they're planning this year.
So next question, beginning with Ahmed. How do you plan on helping facilitate a coherent AUS in terms of counselors, executives, and coordinators?
I think I touched a bit on that on my last point, that one of the main things I want to do is build friendship, and how do I want to do that is to increase AUS unity. Therefore, I think it's important that we organize more events for AUS counselors, and in order to do so, because I believe that the main connection between these counselors is through the AUS retreats, and therefore we can continue to have more of these events, then counselors will be closer together, and they'll, like Sean said, feel more like a family, and I think that's extremely important for the AUS to work to the best of its ability.
So I think, as Ahmed had touched on before, it's great to get people together and organize events like retreats or even events. But I think what we really need to do is sort of outreach, like before council meetings, like work with the VP admin and get the schedule sent out a little bit earlier so that people have time to work around their schedule, so that a lot of people are actually in attendance at meetings. And something we did on AMS Council is, instead of everyone always sitting in sort of the same position, if we just switch around some name cards, sit next to someone you normally don't talk to, introduce yourself, then there you go, you have a new friend. And especially with the clubs that sit on our council meetings, it's a great way for them to sort of connect out to other club reps and facilitate it with us so we can organize meetings with them to really get them to collaborate for like academic and social events.
Any rebuttals? Okay, next question, beginning with Sean. Imagine you're planning the AUS Council Retreat in October. Describe how you envision the whole weekend. Location, theme, timing, and schedule is all up to you.
So one thing that we need to keep in mind is we just had a referendum to vote up the selling of the Whistler Lodge. So whether or not we do something on campus, like if we have sort of an event in Mass, it necessarily doesn't have to be sort of a full weekend. Like if Whistler's still there, then it'd be great to do the Whistler Retreat. And I think what's the one thing we did this year was organize workshops with each of the execs, so all the individuals come and meet with them, sort of talk about their needs, see how they could sort of help them through the year. I think definitely a weekend is an option. I liked what we did this year with Thanksgiving long weekend, even though I know it's hard for a few people to make because some people do like to go home. But I think if we can organize it, even do like a poll so that no one has papers or exams or anything, that way we can get the most people out and the most efficiency out of our time at the retreat.
I think it's important to keep the AUS retreat around the same time as we had it this year, because most AUS counselors were able to attend. As Sean said, the Whistler Lodge is most likely going to be sold, unfortunately. And therefore I think it's interesting to look into external options, because just keeping it on campus and not having a full weekend won't have the same effect. The actual trip of going up there itself, like singing songs on the bus and coming up with these little games in order to introduce ourselves and to get to know counselors better, I think was very beneficial. Again, I would like to continue the workshops that we have, because that continues to build the bonds, because a lot of AUS counselors know each other from beforehand. It's important for people to meet people they haven't met yet, and therefore I was looking into some other external options in Whistler, and there's other cabins there that are actually very feasible. So.
Okay. Are there any rebuttals?
Yeah. So I don't think it necessarily needs to be an off-campus event. I think if we're going to have something on campus, it probably could save us a bit of money that we could be could be putting towards other things like Frosh or other club events, or that clubs could be using to promote their events. So I think it doesn't necessarily need to be moved off campus. I think if we get the same sort of effect here, we don't necessarily do have to spend as much money.
All right. Last question, beginning with Sean. What makes you the better candidates?
This is a hard one. I'd have to say my dedication to the society and my attendance and engagement in AMS meetings has really given me sort of the top-down view of how to run a society. Not that I'd be running it because that's the president's job, but I think my dedication and my organizational skills and my skills with interpersonal communication to really bring people together and create sort of this like family-like atmosphere, whether it be with organizing events like the retreat or elections. I just think that I've got a lot of good qualities that I could bring to the table and use in this position.
It's a great question. I think that I'm the best candidate for this position because I am approachable, I'm social, I'm committed, I'm motivated, I'm dedicated, but I think the most important is to be organized. I think organization sets apart a good candidate from a great candidate, and because of my organizational skills, I think I would be a good candidate for this position. Thank you.
Okay. Any rebuttals? All right. At this time, we'll now open the floor up to the audience for questions.
So one of the goals that a lot of people have expressed in this election campaign is inclusivity and bringing new people into our society and the importance of that outside of just first-year students. So how do you think you as VP Internal would work to do that through elections, retreats?
Beginning with Ahmed.
If I understood your question correctly, it's not only about bringing people outside the community into necessarily AUS Council, but to get the most out of the people who currently sit on the council. One of my current points on my platform was a motion to review code in order to make certain positions more important, or like to have them more accountability. So for example, second year, third year, fourth year reps, I would like them to maybe participate heavily in Frosh or other philanthropies or parties. Sorry.
I think that's a really important point. Thanks for bringing up the question. I think the most important thing is, aside from first year reps, because everyone in first year is always so peppy, we really need to reach out to the second, third year, and fourth year reps, like grad, fourth year, fifth year, whatever kind of year you're in when you're gradding. A lot of people are sort of tired and say, well, I haven't gotten my time out of the AUS. If we could work with the second, third, or fourth year reps to sort of organize an event, maybe to get people more involved, or work with clubs, because clubs, they don't have sort of a year limit on who joins them. So I think clubs are a good way to go out and connect with students besides first years.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
So both of you have expressed that you're leaning towards creating more of a community within the AUS. So those are people who are running the society, but isn't the AUS serving students? So shouldn't we be focusing more on students than the people who are actually running the organization? Because the people who are running the organization are dedicated and passionate by the mere fact that they want to be involved in the first place. So why are we focusing more on people who are running the organization as opposed to students?
Beginning with Sean.
I think I'm focusing more on people running in organizations, because those are the ones who have the networks and are able to do the outreach. Like if they're able to outreach to enough students to get elected in their position, I feel like they should be able to outreach to those people again, whether it be through social media or just talking to people or making classroom announcements. I think that's how we're going to really touch on the outreach to students.
First of all, I'd like to thank you. That was a great question. The best way in order for the AUS to be able to serve students, in my opinion, is if the AUS itself is able to work cohesively, effectively, and efficiently together. And that's why we have these clubs represented on council and other AMS representatives, to be able to go back to their constituencies and let them know what we're interested in, what we want to organize, and how to basically make them aware of what is happening around campus.
Any other questions? Yes.
Are there any experiences that you have outside of the AUS that help you in this position as a VP intern?
Beginning with Ahmed.
Any experience outside the AUS, so I'm assuming you mean outside my AMS position as well. For example, in high school, I don't know if you're not kind of far away, I was the triathlon captain, and we worked in order to raise awareness for an organization that builds slums, doesn't build slums, excuse me, builds schools in the slums of India. And together we had to organize events and in order to raise as much awareness in high school as possible and to work cohesively as a group to be as effective as possible.
So I just want to bring up two things. On my high school student council, I was the secretary, so I gained a lot of important organizational skills there. More recently, I was part of the AMS referendum campaign that successfully passed the brewery question. So I feel like there was a lot of good resources that I've gained there by means of sort of outreach and communication and really sort of communicating to students and sort of getting them to go for a cause type thing.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, we do have time.
So if you have 30 seconds for an audience question, so if you have 30 seconds and you were talking to an average art student, how would you sell the fact of getting involved with the AUS? So how would you try and get an art student involved? So assume that you're talking to an art student, how would you get the student involved in the AUS?
Beginning with Ahmed.
Okay, first of all, when I first came to UBC, I wanted to get involved in student politics, but the big issue for me was not exactly knowing how to and being almost a bit too intimidated in order to do so. And I think it's important for us to express to students that we want to see as many people participating as possible and they can each contribute something different. And if students actually are aware of that, I feel like they'll be more inclined to step up.
Sean?
As Ahmed was mentioning, I feel like we really need to make students aware that this is their society and we're representing them. So the best thing that they could do to benefit themselves is get involved, even if they're just going to be an assistant, even if they're just going to come out to a couple of information nights. We're here to help them, and I think being approachable and getting out there and actually talking to students to make sure that they know that they can count on us for whatever they need, that's sort of the best way to sort of get people involved.
We do have time for some more questions.
Just one more question. In terms of clubs and the AUS Council and their relationship to clubs, what do you think the AUS has as a responsibility to these clubs and vice versa? Do you think the clubs have a responsibility to the AUS as well?
Okay, beginning with Sean.
I think the clubs do have a responsibility to us in that they need to communicate to their clubs that we're upholding standards and that we're here for them. And I think definitely AUS does have a sort of obligation to their clubs, like whether it be with the VP Finance to get their budgets passed on time, external to get them philanthropy events, student life to help them plan events, or us to sort of liaise between the execs and them. I think definitely the relationship works in both ways.
Ahmed?
So an issue in the past with the AUS has been that certain counselors, after they've provided their grants, do not show up to council meetings. And as a counselor, it is important for you to show up to these meetings in order for the AUS to be able to discuss the issues that we want to see changed or want to see implemented on campus. In addition, by taking that position, you are the representative of your club, and if you're not present, how are we able to express what is happening in the AUS to that respective constituency?
Okay. We do have time for more questions. So, yes?
One final question. Could you guys just wrap up your closing remarks and just repeat your platform for everyone out there?
Beginning with Ahmed.
Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to thank Sean for this debate. So what I'd like to do is I would like to build friendships. How would I like to do so? By integrating council to the best of my ability, and I would like to communicate opportunities that the AUS has available. In addition, I would like to facilitate maximum productivity for all counselors in order for the AUS to work as efficiently as possible. I have more information about that on my platform online. Thank you very much.
Sean?
Hi again, everyone. My name is Sean Gallagher, and I'm running to be the next AUS VP internal. Two main reasons I want to run is I want to increase the efficiency of operating clubs through connecting them with the AUS exec, as well as do more reach out to students, whether it be for promotions for elections, or hiring positions, or events, or stuff like that. For more information on my platform and endorsements, you can visit voteseanforvpinternal.wordpress.com. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That's the end.